Bison horns, bison antlers, how long are they? What are they used for? Let's find out. If you guys haven't noticed, behind me, we have this winter's supply of hay delivered. Now we just need to put them in place and then wait for the snow to come. They say the bison horns can grow somewhere between 22 and 26 inches long. Now that sounds long, but believe it or not, the bison that used to roam this area that they have fossils of were literally the size of longhorns. So what are you gonna do with horns that long? Well, primarily protect yourself. The horns that longhorns have are used for predators like coyotes and wolves, but the bison that we have today have shorter horns, and they have adapted to be able to use those horns to protect themselves, and they're a little bit more of a hook than straight out. I got a different kind of mineral the other day, and this stuff is really, really red. When they're protecting themselves with their horns, they're gonna kind of turn their head and kind of follow that curve of that horn. It's really amazing to see that, you know, even though they can't see that horn, they know exactly where that horn's gonna be. And if they wanna touch you with that horn, they will. And if they don't, they won't. The horns that they have are tremendous protectors. They come down to just a small point. Sometimes it can be like as small as like the tip of my finger, or it can be as small as like a ballpoint pen. Now you would think that, well, it's not as sharp, so it wouldn't be as dangerous. Well, if you thought that, you'd be wrong. They have such force behind their head. That big hump that they have is actually made out of muscle. So they have a spine, kind of like a Spinosaurus, up on the top of that spine, and then it's all wrapped with muscle. And the force that they have with their head pushing that tip of that horn that's, you know, that big around, can actually do a lot of damage, which is great when it comes to protecting themselves against coyotes and wolves and things like that. It's time to call them in. We haven't fed them in a little while, so let's go ahead and whistle and bring them on in. I can see them right between those trees. They're starting to perk up. I think I woke them up from their nap, and they're being really lazy today. This is Red Prairie. She is one of our friendliest. So some of the other really cool things you're going to notice about these bison horns is when they are really small, they are actually a lot darker than when they get a lot bigger. So when they get older like this, you can kind of see coyote right there. The base of his horn is going to start kind of turning gray, and then you can kind of see the tip of it is darker. So those older animals are typically a little bit more gray looking than the younger animals are. So bison horns actually tell a little bit of a tale also. They will actually give you a little bit of insight as to their health and the condition of the animal. When I first got into raising these animals, I didn't know what I was doing. And I actually had a bull that was not doing well at all. And one thing I noticed, but I didn't think anything of it, was his horn was actually kind of starting to peel a little bit. And that actually turned out to be a sign of his health condition, and that he actually had a parasite load that he couldn't fight off. And so that's one thing that's really cool about these animals, is you can use those horns as a little bit of an indicator as to what's going on inside. So another thing that I've seen when it comes to the health of the animal and the horn condition, a lot of times what will happen is when you have an animal that's not really nurtured quite right, that horn will kind of curl a little too prematurely. I've seen this in multiple animals, and I actually saw that in our first herd that we struggled with. That's one of the things that I look for when I'm looking at these guys when they're really young, is to make sure that horn is going out at an appropriate angle and it is not curving in too quickly. Sure, some of it can be genetics, that some animals might want to curve in a little bit more, but that's kind of a rule of thumb that I've just noticed myself, and being able to notice the condition of the animal that way. So when you see this horn, it's really dark, and that is actually the cap of the horn. So that can actually get knocked off. Red Prairie wants some more feed. But that can actually get knocked off, and what is underneath that is actually a bone. So that cap actually covers that, and it protects that bone. Sometimes when these animals get worked into working corrals and stuff, they can get really hyper. They can try to hit the sides of the corral, but don't worry, they will actually regrow that cap. So are they antlers or are they horns? They are horns. An antler actually takes and it will grow a velvet over the top of it. And then when it comes time, usually in the fall, that velvet will fall off and you will see a white antler. That's why you see deer that their antlers are white. That is actually bone, is what you're seeing. That velvet that grows over the top of it, that's actually what helps the antler grow. There's a lot of blood vessels and stuff that are inside of that, and they shed that velvet, and then they will have that antler for, however many months, and then they will shed the antler, and the process starts over again. With these buffalo, it's a little bit different. So a horn starts growing when they are really young, and then they will continue to grow that horn, and it will never just shed off like an antler does on a deer or an elk. Do they know where that horn is once they're adults and that horn is almost 2 foot long? Yes, they actually do. They have really, really good understanding of their surroundings and where that tip of that horn is, and if they want to pierce that horn into something, whether it's another animal, they want to push something out of the way, just tell them who's boss, or they want to hurt something, whether it be you or another animal, they will. The horn on the bison is one of the most dangerous things on the animal. They can kick like nothing else, but that horn is what they use as primary protection. That is their first go-to. They'll kick second, but their horn is going to be first. If you're in front of them and they don't want you there, they will use their horn. That is one thing you have to make sure that you are out of the way. So some of the ranchers, back when I was a kid, 20, 30 years ago, they used to take and they would cut the horn off when the animal was really young. That way the horn wouldn't grow. The majority of folks nowadays agree that cutting the bison's horn off, it just takes something from the animal. That's what really makes a bison, and to cut their horns off, it's just not fair to them. That can be a drawback to having these animals, is that they are dangerous with those horns. But if we were to change all of nature just because it was dangerous, we would live in such a boring world. I think the horn of the bison is one of the really cool things that makes a bison a bison. I love being able to see these animals out in the field. Yes, that horn can actually get a little bit hairy sometimes and dangerous, but respect the animal and everything will be just fine. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching. Stay tuned for more facts and footage and entertainment of this great American icon. Thank you for watching. My name is Noah Gordon. We are Broken Arrow Bison, and we will see you next time.